good evening. Welcome to probably what I'm most excited about so far in sports world. We've got not only a Bassmaster Opens pro, not only a U.S. Coast Guard guide on Chickamauga and Watts Bar, not only former Brown College angler, college and national champ angler, and champion, and I don't know how many college tour events y'all have won, but I know at least one. Because dadgummit, we were 10 ounces behind you. But it's the one and only Mr. Cole SANDS.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Oh, thanks for being on. Cole is hot off a 12th place finish at the Douglas Bassmaster Open. So I figured I'd see if he could get on here and talk about that. And he has kindly agreed, and I'm looking forward to it. So real quick, we'll do a verse of the episode. And this one is from Ephesians. So I went out one day and hung out with, Hunter Bland that fishes the Opens?
Yeah.
Probably. I'm sure he the 44 tackle. And he fished college stuff. I think he's a couple years older than us.
Yeah.
But, Hunter. So I went out, hung out with Hunter a little bit Sunday. And they do a fishing church. Blake Smith does it. And he's like, hey, come do the fishing church with us before. And I was like, so that was cool. And this is what Blake shared at the fishing church. So I thought this was cool and would be a good one to do. So this is Ephesians chapter 1, verse 3. And we'll read a little bit more in verse 3. But it goes like this. It says, blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, who has blessed us in Christ with every spiritual blessing in the heavenly places, even as he chose us in him before the foundation of the world, that we should be holy and blameless before him. In love, he predestined us for adoption to himself as sons through Jesus Christ, according to the purpose of his will, to the praise of his glorious grace, with which he has blessed us in the beloved. And it goes on a little bit there, but Blake's main thing was just that we all know how crazy the world is and how, especially us as tournament fishermen, if you have a bad tournament, that's all, it just sucks. And you're just kicked all the time. I mean, I know we are. And so he was like, sometimes we just need a reminder what's important, who we are. And he read that whole first chapter, but it talks about we're beloved, we're holy, we're blameless, we're adopted, I've written them all down, so I didn't read them all. Redeemed and forgiven. And that was a good reminder, and I appreciated Blake sharing that. Figured that'd be a good one for this episode. So if anybody that fishes the Opens or is around one or travels with them, find Blake, message Blake or message Hunter, and get you in some fishing church on Sunday morning before the tournament starts. So that was a cool deal, and I was glad I got to be a part of that. But anyways, so all out, Cole is known, you're known, and you know this, for being a Chickamauga stud, one of the you got down there, which you started that. Is that this year you started guiding?
Yeah, I actually started end of January. I worked last summer pretty hard to get that Coast Guard license, and I got it about last December, and I started up in January.
Okay, awesome. And you do Watts Bar too, right?
I do. I actually had a trip on Watts Bar this morning.
Oh, really?
So yeah, just Chickamauga and Watts Bar.
Yeah, nice. That honestly, I think Watts Bar is probably my favorite lake within 2 or 3 hours. Like if I was going to fish a lake that I could get to, I would probably fish Watts Bar. I love it.
I mean, I don't tell a lot of people this, but I'd probably rather fish Watts Bar than Chickamauga. 90%.
Oh, I would. I mean, it doesn't get the pressure, and there's big ones.
There's a ton of 3 to 5 pound fish in that lake.
Yeah.
You mean you're probably not going to catch a 10-pounder, but
right. You
want to have a blast and have. I mean, usually in April, it's no problem to go catch 18 to 20 pounds, like pretty consistently. So
yeah,
I mean, it's really a great lake that gets overlooked a lot.
That's cool. That's very cool. So kudos to that. And so Douglas, I was just curious. I know you fished it some before, probably. I know it wasn't your first time on Douglas, but being a Chickamauga grass guy that's coming to Douglas, which for anybody that doesn't know, deep, clear rock, well, not clear, but deep rocky reservoir. Did it kind of set up like you were expecting it to, or did you catch them like you thought you would, or what were your kind of just thoughts coming into it?
Yeah, it actually, it worked out really well. Before any tournament, I like to get a game plan, and I love throwing a big swim bait. Like that's one of my main go-tos on any clear reservoir in the springtime.
Yeah.
Like no matter if it's Bull Shoals or that little lake, Parksville, or Watts Bar, any lake this time of year that there's a little bit of clean water and rock, it seems like they eat them like a mag draft style bait.
Yeah.
So that's something I definitely wanted to see if they'd eat. And then I also was curious about the smallmouth bite because I've been to Cherokee a couple times, and I've had a little bit more experience on lakes like Cherokee than I have Douglas. I mean, I fished Douglas maybe twice before, and I
Yeah.
think once was in July, the other time was in the fall. So I mean, this time it was completely different.
Okay. Yeah.
But so I got there, first day of practice, and within the first 2 hours throwing a big swim bait around, I had like 30 bites, and I'm like, this is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And it's not usually like that. Usually your first, your game plan never seems to work out.
Oh yeah.
It's
Sure.
usually playing, D or E or even, Z or a lot of times before you figure out the fish. But it's just really kind of worked out. I had a game plan, and then I figured, if I could figure out these largemouth, that would be a great way to try to win the tournament. But I did keep the smallmouth honest and kind of figured out how to catch them just in case I needed to, which came into play my last day. In the last hour, I was scrapping, just trying to get a check, and I kind of had to abandon my swim bait bite. But it was one of them deals. I had a great practice. In practice I had 2 20-pound days,
Yeah.
and I mean, like I really thought I was going to have a shot at winning the tournament.
Yeah.
Because they were eating a swim bait like I've never seen them eat a swim bait anywhere. Like I was
That's
catching
awesome.
like seriously 40 fish a day between a mag draft and a glide bait, and I was
Really?
like, "Oh, if this keeps up." And it worked out good the first day when I had 15 pounds. The second day it kind of went away, and I had to scrap everything in the last hour and pick up a Ned rig and go catch some smallmouth. But
Oh gosh. Yeah.
but I mean,
That,
it was a good check. I missed the top 10 cut by 5 ounces. I fished clean. I caught I think 60 fish in 2 days, and I lost 1 3-pounder on the boat flip.
yeah.
So
That's
I'm not
awesome.
going to complain about it at all.
Not at all. So I'm curious, and you don't have to share anything you don't want to. I don't. Not that you're probably coming back to Douglas soon, but were you doing the off? I know a lot of times on Douglas, guys catch them pre and post doing the long point offshore swim bait thing, or were you just kind of cruising around the same stuff everybody else was fishing and just getting the bites on the bigger stuff?
Well, it was a little bit in practice. I found some fish offshore
Yeah.
with a 6XD, and that was something else I looked for just in case, just something to have in my back pocket. But there were so many boats doing it. I mean, it was unbelievable the amount of offshore pressure.
Really? See, that's kind
Yeah,
of surprising to me.
yeah, it was me as well. But Douglas isn't as big as you might think. Like, it looks like a big lake, but you put 230 of the best, some really good anglers on there. You're like,
Yeah.
wow, they figure out everything. But
Right.
it seemed like everybody going down the bank was either throwing a spinner bait or a crankbait, and you could go behind it with something real natural, like a swim bait, or you could really downsize, to something like a Ned rig or a 2.8-inch Kitech, and you'd still get bit.
Yeah.
So you definitely had to go behind people, and for me, it seemed like the steeper stuff was good.
Yeah.
One thing that did surprise me, usually on most clear reservoirs this time of year, if you go in the very back of them hollers, you can still get bites.
Mm-hmm.
But it seemed like they like the steep stuff going in. I think they're spawning on the steeper banks, which they also do that at Watts Bar. They spawn a little bit deeper in a lot of places I've noticed. And that's kind of the pattern I clued in on. But it was weird. You go down one bank and catch them, and then you go hit 3 or 4 more banks that looked identical and not get a bite.
Yeah.
So it almost seemed like you got just into like productive areas, because like you get in one little creek arm and you'd kind of catch them off a flat point, you catch them off a steep side, like they were just kind of everywhere in that one little area.
Right.
Which was a little bit different, but that's one thing I definitely clued in on.
Well, and that the water was falling for y'all quite a bit, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think I got there on Saturday, so I gave myself 5 days to practice, which is more than I've ever got. But when I got there on Sunday until the time the tournament started, I think it dropped 3 or 4 foot.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's another reason I targeted the steep banks, because I'm like, well, if I could get on some of these, they'll probably still be good, 5 days from now. Yeah.
And that was, I kind of know the same thing. When we went out Sunday, that day before practice started, it was the same kind of thing. You catch a lot more bites on the steeper stuff. And even yesterday, I went out just for a few hours after church, and it's the same kind. I mean, and a lot of fish, the ones that we caught, I fished through one area last Sunday and this Sunday, and all the ones we caught last weekend were big. I mean, they were healthy, thicker, pre-spawn looking ones. And all the ones that I'd caught were either on bed or were finished, because they were all slim and bloodied up. And were you catching pre's or were you catching post or a little bit of both?
It's kind of funny you said that because in practice, it seemed like they were all really fat.
Man, one picture you posted, it looked like that one big one was about to bust.
It was.
I mean,
and I mean, I don't know how big they get on Douglas, but that fish was over 7, close to 8 pounds, which I think was a giant for that one.
That's a stud, yeah.
And it's kind of funny when I set the hook on that fish. I was throwing a line through swim bait at that point, and it was in practice. So I set the hook. I'm like, man, that's a big one. I reached down to grab it, and so a line through swim bait, your swim bait slides up the line.
Yeah.
And I reached down to grab it, and a 3-pounder came up and ate that swim bait as I was grabbing that big one.
Really?
And I was like, oh my gosh! I was like, this is ridiculous. I was freaking out. I was like, this is ridiculous.
That is ridiculous.
But yeah, I definitely noticed in practice they seemed to be fat, and it was like the day before the tournament started, I started catching skinny fish, like big, long. And the first day, both days of the tournament, I caught some long, skinny fish that should have weighed a lot more than they did.
Yeah.
But the first day of the tournament, I had one that was almost 5 pounds, and it was fat. Fat as a gourd. So
yeah,
I think that they're in all stages right now on Douglas for sure.
It seems to, and even not just numbers wise. I've talked to a few guys. I had some friends fishing at Boater and Co-angler side, but one of the buddies finished 10th on the co-side, and he went out. I think he might have gone out Saturday after the tournament once it was over, and he's like, man, I went out just because we caught so many, even if they're not great big ones. He's like, whatever you want to throw, you could just and it seemed like you said, just once you get in an area, he'd just make laps around this little pocket and just waxed them. And so it's somebody at school, of course, I think I've said this on here before, but I teach high school, and a lot of those guys there are all into the high school fishing stuff and love going. And one of them was like, I think I might go to Cherokee today. What do you think? I was like, I think you need to go to Douglas and catch a ton, because Cherokee doesn't sound like it's quite as good right now. I know a couple tournaments there last weekend. I think it took like 14 to win one of the pretty big rescue squad tournaments. But Nick Hatfield probably, or at least he's as good as Cherokee as anybody I know. And I figure if Nick's winning an 80 boat tournament with 14 pounds, it was funky. It was funky for us 2 weekends ago, and it's been kind of weird this year. It's got to be getting really good soon. Kind of like when those college stuff was there, where you can catch a bunch rigging or swim baiting or something like that. It's got to be close to that, but Douglas seems to be the hot lake around here right now for sure, even after getting pounded for a few days.
Yeah, it really impressed me because it seemed like you could constantly go behind boats and still get bit. And one thing that was nice, on Chickamauga, they get really boat shy. Like if you get close to fish blowing up, they completely just, you can't catch them.
Yeah.
And in practice at Douglas, I was having fish blow up and push out against my boat, and they had no care in the world that I was there.
Really?
But, which was, it was nice for a change. But one thing, it seems like there is 1 million 2-pounders in Douglas right now, which is a blast. Now, 2.5-pounder is kind of hard to catch. It seems like. But,
and I was. Go ahead.
I was going to say, you look at the weights and you're like, well, it took less than 15 pounds a day to win, but just the amount of people that were catching 10 to 12 pounds, everybody had it. Like there was just so many fish in that caliber biting. I was blown away with how many fish were in that lake.
Yeah. And I actually wrote that down beforehand. I knew I'd get my numbers mixed up. If you caught 10 pounds a day, you're in 150th. And if you caught 12 pounds a day, you're in 56th. If you got 14 a day, you're in 3rd. And it's like every one more pound you caught a day moves you up 50 spots.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. I mean, you hear tournaments that are like, oh, that's the weights are stacked. Everybody's real tight. But that one, I remember scrolling through it, especially after the second day. And you're like, oh my God, there'd be 4 or 5 guys that are tied with the same weight at every weight, it seemed like. So, it's got a bunch of fish.
There's definitely the most stacked weights I've seen in a tournament in a long time. And it showed the importance of getting a kicker bite.
And that's what I was going to ask is, so you were right around what? You had 15 the first day, and what'd you have saying, 12, 13?
Yeah, I had 15.6 the first day and 12 pounds, 2 ounces the second day.
So were you, especially, you said you had that 1 5-pounder. I was curious, the guys that were catching, that could catch just a little bit better than 12, that were like 13, 14, were they I assume most of them were probably catching 2.5 pounders, and then they'd catch 1 4 or 5 pounder. Or if it was just they were just in an area that just instead of 2.5 pounders, it had 2 3/4 and a couple 3 pounders in there. I figured it's probably 1 or 2 kicker bites as opposed to just a better grade of fish.
Yeah, it definitely seemed like 2 kicker bites or 1 big one.
Yeah,
was kind of the deal for a lot of people. 2 4+ pound bites. Now I think the guy who won was actually catching a bunch of just solid fish. And I mean, I had my buddy Hunter Sales. I don't know if you know him.
oh yeah, yeah,
Carson Newman coach. He had a really good second day. He had almost 16 pounds, and he had a limit of just solid, like 3.5 pound, or he had a little one, but the rest were just 3.5 pounders.
yeah.
So I mean, it definitely seemed like a kicker bite kind of, drove the bag. Even the days in practice I had that, I had big bags, I wasn't getting that many big bites. Like it wasn't like I was catching a ton of 3 pounders. It was like 22 pounders and then maybe 5 fish between 3 and 5 pounds,
Yeah.
So it was definitely a game of getting 1 or 2 big bites.
Yeah. That's cool. And I was surprised too. I mean, like you talking about your practice. Bland was asking me beforehand what I thought it'd take to win. I was like he'll probably take 50. I thought it might be a little higher. I really thought it'd probably take like 15 or 16 to at least have a chance. But I was like, somebody's going to catch 18 to 22 pounds on a big swim bait. And with that many people, I couldn't believe. That's what I talked to a couple guys yesterday. I was like, I just was so surprised that nobody caught 18 to 20 something pounds on a big swim bait. Because that's with that many of you guys out there that can catch them like you all do. I was like, they may not catch it every day, but that's going to happen at some point. And I was just shocked it didn't.
I think a big reason for that was just the amount of pressure. Like it was just so hard to get something to yourself.
Right.
And I mean, looking back, I probably the first day I kind of pulled off one of my spots. I had one big fish spot. I pulled up, I made 5 casts. I caught a 5 and a 3, and I left.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to start for the second day, but it turns out I kind of needed some wind. But it was one of the deals. I had one stretch. I feel like if I'd had it to myself, I could have caught 20 pounds off it.
Yeah.
But it's just with so many boats constantly rotating this one area. I mean, it's hard. It's hard enough just getting one kicker bite.
For sure.
Because I had that one spot. It was in practice. I pulled up. It was a certain type of rock I was looking for, and I pull up to one spot, I catch a 5 pounder, go around the, pick up the trolling motor, go around the corner, make 1 cast, catch a 5 pounder. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're loaded. Yeah. They're loaded here, and they're all 5 pounders. And that is where I caught the 5 pounder the first day of the tournament. But it was getting just so much pressure that I think that's the biggest thing that made it hard. And I think that's the biggest reason you didn't see any 20-pound bags during the tournament.
It had to have been, I guess. But I was kind of surprised that many people caught them that good, but without a big bag. But that's I mean,
I was too.
When you're making laps like that, that'll happen. It's like every time I think of doing laps, I think of Bemidji up there in Minnesota when everybody except for Jake and Jacob were in that little 5-mile stretch. That was like a carousel. It was like, well, whenever they rotate off that, we'll go over there and fish that. And that was, or we'll sit in this one spot all day long and just wait. Yeah. But that was a lap thing for sure. But so what are you, I know you're fishing obviously the Southerns, but are you fishing all the opens, or what are you fishing this year?
Not this year. So I decided to stay and get my master's, and I'll be done.
Okay.
I'll be done in 2 weeks, thankfully.
Well, congrats on that. That'll be nice.
I know I've been in college about as long as they'll let me stay, but a lot of people give me crap about it. But so this year I just decided to hop in the Southern Opens just because funds and just thankfully I was able to raise enough sponsorship money to kind of help me a lot with that.
Be sure and plug. Say it at the end. Tell him or let him plug all sponsors. But I mean, because I know you're a Yo-Zuri guy.
Yeah, Yo-Zuri and Hardcore really stepped up this year, and man, they really started making some really good products. So I'm really excited to be with them. I was actually catching a bunch of fish in practice on their glide bait, the Hardcore glide bait. But Yo-Zuri and Hardcore have been great. Tumlin, I'm sure you know Dennis Tumlin.
I know the name.
He started fish dating.
Okay.
So he does a lot for Dayton, but he's got a realty business called Tumbling Realty, Lake Chickamauga Rentals, Tacticam. I'm sure you've
Oh
seen.
yeah. I've
Tacticam.
seen a lot of your Taxicam stuff, which is awesome.
So yeah, I mean that's just to name a few, and they've all kind of really stepped up and helped me a bunch this year. And my goal is get done with school this year, fish my last 1 or 2 college tournaments I got left, and then next year I'm going to try to fish at least 2 divisions. I think next year I'm going to really push hard. It's just, I mean, it's so hard to qualify. It's
Oh
harder than I
yeah.
thought it was.
You
And
say as hard as you thought it was?
it's harder.
Oh
It's
yeah.
a lot harder because you look at like I bombed the first tournament at the Harris Chain. I mean, I was excited about that one and I completely bombed it. And so,
Yeah.
I mean, I knew I was out of it. That's why at Douglas, I was like, man, I'm just going to go swinging with a big swim bait and, maybe I'll land on 5 big ones. But,
Yeah.
but you look at somebody like Jacob Fouts, who I'm pretty close with. He came in 3rd at the Harris Chain and he came in 11th at Douglas. I mean, 2 outstanding finishes.
Yeah.
And he's only leading angler of the year by 3 points.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my gosh, like he's going to have to top 15 this last open to make
I
it.
wonder what he is from, what is it, the top 4 from each division that get the invite?
It's the top 3 from each division, but if you fish all 3 divisions, you go in your own separate bracket against who fished. And that's the way to do it because there's only like 30 guys that do that.
Yeah.
And that's probably what I'm going to try to do next year just because that's the way to make it.
Yeah.
It's hard to beat 217 other people.
Yeah. I mean, if you have one finish outside of the top 20, I mean, that's a pretty big hole. I mean, really, because there's probably going to be 3 guys that are top 30 every time. If you're fishing 3 of them, I mean, at least fishing 9, you get a little wiggle room, which is nice.
Yeah. I mean, it was like at the Harris Chain at that Bass Open. Greg Hackney blasts off in front of me, and we're idling through them canals down there, and I look behind me, and Jacob Perosnik's the boat behind me. I'm like, man, I'm fishing against these guys trying to qualify for the elites, and and there's so many FOW guys, so many Bassmaster guys that are fishing the opens as well.
Yeah,
and it makes it makes you realize you can't have a bad tournament.
Yeah, it's stout for sure, but that's the way to do it. Fish them. I mean, if you can fish them all, fish them all. That's hopefully. I know everybody says they're going to do it, but so Dana, you hadn't met my wife, but Dana, I'm pointing at her like she's standing here, but she's in the kitchen. She's a scientist, and we just found out. I don't know if I said on here to the 10 people that listen. We're moving to Philadelphia this summer, packing up and moving north, and that's going to hopefully line up pretty well if I can get some sponsors lined up like I'm thinking or hoping I can this summer to where I'll be able to fish all of them next year. If not all the opens, as many Toyota series as I can, because it's kind of like if I'm going to fish the opens, I'm going to fish them all. Yeah. I'm not going to fish. I don't want to fish 3 of them. I mean, if I can only fish 3 of them, I can only fish 3 of them. But I'd rather fish the Toyota series where I feel like your chances, just because they pay some more places, chances of making your money back just to help you afford the season and might be a little bit more doable. But yeah, that's not hopefully. I think it was Greg Hackney. I remember watching, like when I was in middle school, I'd get on YouTube all the time and just watch like inspirational Greg Hackney videos, or just whoever had recorded one and uploaded it. And he's like, when you're talking about your dreams, he said, they're not dreams, they're goals. Everybody can think about a dream, but if you've got a goal, you're actually doing something about it. You're trying to make it happen. But anyway, so hopefully we'll either be on all the opens next year with you, or some Toyota series, or some combination of the 2. Who knows? But I turned in the resignation letter at work, and I'm like, we got to chase it, fellas. It was like, see, we might be based out of Philadelphia now, but so we're excited about that. Just not just the fishing, but moving. So that'll be a cool deal. And she's doing some hospital work and working for the University of Pennsylvania up there, the big league, once she graduates this year. So that'll be cool. But anyways, let's see. Did I have anything else I want? Oh, the one thing that I have said I'm going to ask everybody, because it has to be a good story for this. I think that's about all I got, is this. What is the weirdest thing you've ever seen? Because even though we're fairly young guys, we've fished enough to see some weird stuff. But what's the weirdest thing you've ever seen somebody catch fish on? Like they tied on and you're looking at them like, what on blue blazes is that? And they throw it and catch one.
The weirdest thing I've ever seen somebody catch a fish on.
Mine was I'll tell you mine while you're thinking. Mine was at Douglas during the BFL, and my co-angler, we're around some bushes right after the water come up, and he pulls out a flipping jig, takes the skirt off of it. It's a 3/4 ounce football head, and he puts a little turd worm on it, and it's just a turd worm with the weed guard on a 3/4 ounce football head, and just starts flipping it. And he caught 3 or 4 keepers before we pulled out of one little bitty slough. I was like, wear it out, man. And a guy that fished on the tech team, he was at a little pond in Cookville throwing an Alabama rig with 5 rage craws on it. He said, well, I've been catching them on one. I figured if I put 5 on it, they might bite it even better. They probably would catch them. But I didn't.
He got one?
Hey, I didn't see. That's the one I didn't see it work. But if you throw it long enough, there's bound to be one dumb one that's like, hey, there's a school of crawfish. But I figure everybody's got something weird they've seen.
I'm trying to think. I've had some co-anglers throw some crazy stuff and do some crazy stuff, but I don't.
Or even one of those. It doesn't have to have necessarily caught a fish.
I mean, I had a couple co-anglers throwing a 6XD in the middle of nowhere in about 60 foot of water behind me at Douglas.
Oh,
yeah. I think Jackal makes it's like a pompadour or something. It looks like almost like a bat. Like if you can imagine a bat on top of the water.
Yeah.
My buddy was kind of new to fishing, tied one on probably 3 or 4 years ago. And I'm like, man, that thing looks wild, right? And he commenced to whacking them on it. I mean, we went down the grass line and it was every other cast, it seemed like.
Good grief.
And it was
bat.
Yeah, something like that. I think Jackal makes it. But I mean, that was kind of crazy, but I'm really not shocked anymore. Like, I mean, it's just to the point, especially on like guiding on Chickamauga, there's so much pressure.
Yeah.
It seems like you just look in your tackle box and like, it's like, well, what is everybody else not throwing?
Yeah.
It's like, there's no secrets. Like, I mean, I'll be honest, the best bait lately is a Ned rig on Chickamauga. You know, you think, you know, like right now I'm either going super small or like super big. It's like, there's nothing in between.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm really just not even surprised anymore.
Yeah,
It's got to that point.
That makes sense. That as many people are after Lord, you got anywhere on a weekend, much less somewhere when there's an open tournament or Chickamauga, and Lord, it's just slammed all the time. So yeah, hey, whatever they hadn't seen, wear it out. Wear it out. I need to dig a little duck out, one of those little savage ducks, and toss it around Douglas this weekend.
Probably catch one. They're biting.
Probably would. Stumble upon one. Well, unless there's anything else you want to throw out there or share, I'll wrap it up and let you go. But I appreciate you for getting on here and chatting about Douglas a little bit.
Yeah, that's no problem. I appreciate you letting me come on.
Yeah. Well, we will do it again when you win the one at Norman. We'll do another one. And
don't hold your breath for that one.
Get the Norman breakdown. I don't know what it would be like in September. I mean, I'm sure you still catch a bunch of little spots, but that was.
I mean, my thought process going into it, you know, it shouldn't be hard to catch 12-inch spotted bass, but I don't think it'll take much to win. I mean, I think 11 or 12 pounds a day and you'll probably win. You just need to get lucky and have a good 15-pound day or something.
Yeah.
But I mean, there should be some shallow running, you know, wolfpack and largemouth, I would think.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I think is how it's going to be won, you know, a horny toad or something like that. Buzz bait. So I don't know. That's going to be a definite grinder, I'm afraid. But I look forward to it. You know, those are the ones that are easier to win, supposedly. And I mean, I will. Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I will tell you one thing. So, you know, I wanted to hop into opens this year and you know, just kind of dip my toes in the water and see what it's like. And for anybody that's thinking about getting into them, it is a lot more, what's the word? There's not near as much sportsmanship in the opens as other tournament trails. Like even compared to college, it's a very cutthroat. Like you better, I learned at the Harris Chain, I spun out a little bit. Like people will pull on top of you if you catch one. You can't be scared to pull in on top of them. Like, I mean, there was a couple spots there'd be 12 boats touching each other.
Yeah.
Like, I was the very last boat number for my, my very first open. I was boat 222 out of 222. I started running around. There's boats on everything, and I'm like, I'm not going to pull up on them, right? That's not in my nature.
Yeah.
And I pulled up. One spot, there's a boat catching them. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it. I pulled up to the next spot. Patrick Walters is busy catching 26 pounds or whatever he was catching. It's like, I ain't going to do it. And I mean, it's a learning experience. I mean, if anybody's getting into them, I would encourage, always be polite, be respectful. But just be ready to realize people are going to do that, and you just got to keep your head down. And me, I'm going to stick to what I think if you're going to win a tournament, you do got to find something to yourself. I really do. But it's just part of it. It was a learning experience, and it's something I grew from. And I mean, it's exciting. It's different. I feel like it's different than any other tournament trail in that regard. I mean, and people are trying really hard to make it to the elites. And
hey, everybody's the next Elite Series qualifier as far as they're concerned. Because there's a lot of guys that are plenty talented enough to do it if they have 3 good tournaments. And I mean, I would say other than the 30 obvious ones that fish them all, I mean, that's what everybody's, I mean, you don't really fish the opens unless you're cherry picking one or trying to qualify for the elites. I wouldn't think so. But hey, I will say that and him saying that is a great point to this, is that through all the 3 years, I don't know, we probably fished college 3 years for the same time, which how I've been teaching for 3 years, and you're still getting your master's. I did the math, and I'm like, that's when I remember we left Minnesota, which was my last year after having a debacle of a boat and truck totaling experience, and finally get everything together. And I'm leaving. No, that was Oklahoma, not Minnesota. Oklahoma, 10 killer the year after that. And King's like, hey, I passed him in the hotel lobby. He said, we got some nice education master's programs down here at Bryan. He said, how about you come sign up for some? I was like, don't tempt me. I might do it. Well, if I didn't have a job lined up, you might be able to talk me into it. But all 4 years at college, whatever it was that we fished together, that's somebody. I'm pointing to the other screen. I don't know if it looks right on your screen, but that is is a genuine and honest and straight of a guy. Oh, that sounded weird. You're as good as they come that I ever met in the college fishing stuff, and I've got a lot of respect for you for that. I've never heard anybody say a bad thing about Cole, and the way that he acts and talks is definitely a testament to that.
Thank you.
I know you love the Lord and you can catch bass, and you're a good dude. So what's not to like? Also, shout out to, I just realized we're both wearing our Bass Attitude hats.
That's right. You gotta.
I like that stuff. I gotta get me a spot hat. Spots are my favorite, and I love the spot hats. But
I got one. But yeah, I'll tell Chris to hook you up.
I need to get me one. And also, last thing, I've finally, I had long hair for a long time, and all through college, I know I said this to Cole before, but it happened in college. Every once in a while, we're both, how tall are you? What, 6'4", 6'5", something like that. We're both the same height. And I had long hair for a while, and at the Chickamauga BFL in January this year, from the time I walked from the Dayton tackle store to the time I got in my boat at the end of the ramp, I had 4 people yell Cole at me until I turned around. They were like, oh, sorry, man. I thought you were somebody else. I had one person say, man, I've seen that YouTube video, you catching a 10-pounder on a whopper flopper at Chickamauga in August or whatever it was. And I was like, and I finally with that guy, I was like, yeah, man, that was a big one. That's great. Yeah, I love it. What's your name? Cole? Yeah, Cole. Man, nice to meet you. Good luck today. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. But and this was the weirdest thing, is that Dana's has a friend that went to school with Leslie. Is it Leslie, right? Yeah. With Cole's girlfriend. And she saw a picture of Leslie and Cole, not knowing who Cole was or that I knew him at all, and sent it to Dana and said, this guy that my friend from high school is dating looks just like Sam. And Dana showed it to me. I was like, that's Cole. Yes, apparently it. So now that the hair's gone, maybe that we'll fix some of that. But anyways.
Yeah, I think about the same height, about the same hair color. And I mean, I could see the confusion.
Yeah, it happened. It happened to me a lot. But anyways, well, sir, I certainly appreciate it. Good luck at Norman, God, rest of your year. And I'm sure I'll run into you at some point, but thanks for hopping on, and I'll talk to you at some point in the future.
Sounds good. Let's go
All
fishing.
right. Everybody, thanks for watching and listening. We'll see you next time.